Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition, a Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We have Thursday. That means we'll have our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, here in just a minute. And got a lot to talk about as usual. Well, let's do this. Let's go straight to Brent. Brent, you're on the Titan More Hotline courtesy of Comfort Temp. How we doing, my friend?
Well, good morning. Some interesting games this week after an interesting weekend that we had before, and to say the least, the Southeastern Conference is doing rather well.
That is very true. That is very true. Andy, before we get started, says Shane Olin Kreutz was nominated for the NFL Hall of Fame. Was he the best center you played with? Yeah, he's very good. I texted with Olin yesterday to congratulate him. He's a small guy too, man. He was barely 6 foot, if that. He was hard to take snaps from because he got so low. But good player, mean joker. That's what made him a good player. He was very, very mean. Brent, before we jump into it, we got some YouTube questions I want to get to. Conyer Ron says, what is everyone's opinion on the possibility of John Gruden coaching the Gators? I don't think there's any way that possibly happens. There's no way. No way.
Agreed. Yeah. That's like being able to find Bigfoot. That question comes up every year.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some good success, but he's never the landscape. I don't see that happening at all. All right, Brent. As we said here, the top 25, the new one came out. No surprises. Tons of SEC teams. There's a flip flop at the top of the number one team in America now, the Longhorns.
Yeah, there is. Georgia obviously eking out a 13-12 win over Kentucky is a reason that they've gone down to number 2. The happiest person on the planet about this is Georgia coach Kirby Smart, because he doesn't have to answer questions about being the number 1 team anymore, and he will use that in the disrespect card. And look, Texas has played well. That's fine, but again, we are in the new playoff situation to where all that matters is, are you in the top 12, not the top 4?
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of good. I'm looking at your list here. Some of the upcoming games here in the next few weeks. My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm hoping whatever time the Gator game is, it'll be well done so I can go watch these games.
Yeah, good point. Georgia, for the first time in quite a while, has got a really daunting schedule. They've got Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee coming up. Bama's got Georgia, Tennessee, and Missouri. Ole Miss has Georgia coming up. As we mentioned, in Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, Missouri has Alabama. So yeah, some tremendous games on the horizon.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's sitting here talking about Gruden. There's no way in the world John Gruden will be the coach here. No way, in my opinion. But what do I know? There's some teams scoring a bunch of points around the country.
Yeah, there really are. Tennessee leads the nation right now with 63 points a game. Ole Miss is 56. Miami, Florida is 53. Bama's 49. South Alabama's 48, and they play tonight on ESPN at 7:30. They play at App State, so that should be a pretty interesting game. some of the Alabama coaches, by the way, are from South Alabama, such as Womack, their defensive coordinator. Texas is averaging 46 a game, Arkansas 46. And again, these are just after 3 games. Stats really kind of come into play. I would say probably game 4, 5, or 6, or at least they start beginning to mean a little bit more.
Yeah, the one that stands out to me that's averaging 43.5 points a game, the midshipman of Navy.
Yeah, that's amazing. It
I
really is.
I think they have a new coach, if I'm not
They do.
mistaken, and they
They
maybe
do.
obviously they're not running the triple option anymore.
No, that's listen. 43 points a game is what Navy used to score in about 3 games, frankly. And by the way, one thing I just added to the notes: college football teams that have not allowed a touchdown: Ohio State, Georgia, and Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. As you mentioned, South Alabama plays App State tonight on ESPN, and then the only other college game is Edward Waters at Benedict.
Yeah,
Edward Waters
that's
is out
right.
of Jacksonville.
Yeah, they sure are hoping to have a good season. Tomorrow night, Stanford at Syracuse, Illinois at Nebraska. So folks get to see Nebraska, the late game. On the CW, by the way, Ole Miss was on CW last week. San Jose State and Washington State. So some interesting football tomorrow night.
Yeah, Illinois, Nebraska, one of those teams is going to go 4-0. So
That's
it'll be
amazing in a
interesting.
chain.
Yeah, yeah. Michigan obviously plays USC this week. USC's traveling across the country for their first Big Ten game. Michigan's making a quarterback change.
Yes, yeah. Alex Orji is the quarterback, so that's where they're going. Southern Cal is led by Miller Moss, who really has had a good year. I'm curious if you've been able to see him yet. USC's only committed 1 turnover on the year, so this will be. And again, it's at Michigan. Texas was at Michigan a few weeks ago. So if you're a Michigan fan, you're certainly enjoying the teams coming in. Frankly, I think Michigan starting over, there's nothing wrong with that. While their players went to the NFL, and I think if Moss plays well, that USC should win this one by a couple of touchdowns.
Couple of texts here before we move on the Titan and more texts. Now, Michael in Tennessee says, word has come out that John Gruden is wanting to get back into coaching and possibly college. Your thoughts on John Gruden at Florida? No chance. No chance. No chance. Here's one from John in the Panhandle. Says, QB, if Florida were to fire Billy Napier this week or next week, wouldn't the entire roster have 30 days from the date to transfer if they wanted to? Also, I agree with Shane that we can't worry about the roster retention or recruiting. We have to get this hire right. Yeah. There is some kind of rule. I'm sure our listeners know this better than I do. Brent, you may know it. If a coach is fired, does that player have 30 days to go into the portal immediately, or is that like at the end of the season?
Well, the question here is, can you do it in season? The rules, my understanding, have been made pretty much that would happen before the season or after the season. That would be the part of it that we would need to nail down. Is that allowed in season? And look, it may be, but frankly, I doubt it. I mean, the logic of that. Imagine trying to leave your school in the middle of the season, and then other teams in the midst of their season trying to bring somebody else in. So we'll check on that, but I think it would. I don't think that'd be allowed during the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think you can either. But I don't really know I don't really care, quite honestly. Because I wanted to read Joseph if I can pull it up here. His Joseph says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel. First round of the playoffs is December 20th. Early signing days December 4th through the 6th. Transfer portal opens for one time in December. Not good timing if we're hoping for Lane Kiffin. Agree. But I could care less about players at this point. Just get the right coach.
Yeah. Now the portal still right now is open in the spring, but the NCAA is considering doing away with the spring portal. So for now, both portals are open until further notice from the NCAA.
Jimmy John says, don't know why people aren't mentioning Jeff Brom for the job after Billy is fired. He would be one of my top three for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah,
He is.
I
He
concur with
is.
that.
He's a very good offensive coach. We talked a little bit about USC, Michigan. Brent, let's move down to Alabama. It was kind of close. I didn't get to see. I just kept seeing the scores of the game against Wisconsin. I think they kind of sputtered around and they kind of blew them out in the second half. What are your thoughts on Alabama's performance on the road at Wisconsin?
Yeah, they were dominant, but by the time the game was over, it was a big win, 42-10. Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, was one of the players of the week nationally in the SEC. Threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for 2. The secondary continues to play well. By the way, people haven't heard this. Tyler Van Dyke, who transferred from Miami to Wisconsin, got hurt in that game with an knee injury. He is out for the year. That's very unfortunate, obviously, for him. Ryan Williams, Alabama freshman wide receiver, continues. He's caught a touchdown or maybe 2 in almost every game. And Bama's offensive line is playing better. Quay Russo got hurt in the game, Alabama linebacker, but there was no tear, and he is not out for the year. So Bama gets a week off, Georgia gets a week off, and they play in Tuscaloosa next week.
Speaking of Ryan Williams, I've seen clips of him, Brent. Is he? I mean, I know he's a true freshman. I think he's only 17 years old. I think he's supposed to still be in high school.
Correct.
I mean, Alabama in the last 10, 15 years have had some tremendous receivers come out of there. He might be the best.
He's got potential to be that way. And as Shane said, he reclassified and was able to come in. A really good kid, from what I understand, is a great attitude, team player, and all that. But so far, he has been very good. And the thing that he gives them it's not that they didn't have it, because they did, but he's just a little better at it. Is a really good vertical deep threat. So he's a guy that you got to know where he is on the field in every play.
Yeah, Barone says he'd have no problem with Brom, but Brom's a Louisville alum. Highly doubt he would leave his alma mater. You never know. But yeah,
Right.
Papa John's would probably throw a lot of money at him.
Probably.
If they're still their sponsor. One of the intriguing games this week in the conference, Auburn is hosting Arkansas. Okay.
It is.
They are putting, Brent, is it true? Are they putting Hank Brown, quarterback of Auburn, in the Hall of Fame since he threw for over 200 yards?
Yeah. They need to temper some of the enthusiasm, don't they, Shane?
Yeah.
He had 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, he did play well. He made some really good throws at times. So Peyton Thorne is on the bench. And basically Hugh Freeze is going to see how that goes with Hank Brown. Now, I mean, Auburn played well. Auburn still struggled at times in New Mexico. They allowed nearly 450 yards to New Mexico, nearly 300 through the air. So they've got a lot to do with the secondary getting fixed. 2 really good runners in this game. Jarquez Hunter ran for 150 for Auburn in New Mexico. And for Arkansas, if people haven't seen him, Jaquindon Jackson is a real deal. He is one of the better running backs in the league. Remember that Rocket Sanders went to South Carolina, leaving a void for Arkansas, and Jaquindon Jackson has kind of filled that. Taylon Green is playing okay, 53 of 94, which puts him around 50%. 3 touchdowns. He's run for 254. But Shane, as you've said, young quarterbacks can be erratic, and that is the thing with Green. He'll have a terrific play, and then he'll have a head scratching play right after that. So to your point, this is really an early important game for both these teams.
Yeah, I want to address this. People keep saying, why is UF against hiring Kerwin Bell? Sean says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, needs to go to a lower power four school and prove he can be successful. Okay. There's not many coaches coaching college football that have done what Kerwin has done. Kerwin has won a championship at every school he has gone to. Okay. His evaluation of players is better than majority of the people that are actually coaching major college football right now. For example, his kid, who is the OC now at Pitt, took 3 of the Western Carolina players with him, and they are their leading scorers and rushers and reception leaders and all that. So he's won everywhere he's been. He has won a championship at every school he has been at. Not yet at Western Carolina, but he won one at JU. He won a national championship at Valdosta State. I will tell you, not because he's one of my best friends, he is clearly better than majority of the coaches coaching out there. And Kerwin could easily run the UF program. I mean, look, people think football is very difficult. It is not. Okay. Coaching football is not hard. So, all right, there's my rant on that. All right, so Brent, let's talk about the mighty Gators. They are going to be getting a very, very early wake-up call Saturday, a place we never play well at for whatever reason. Mississippi State stinks like we do right now. 2 defenses that can't stop anybody.
Yeah, that's a problem. State is under first-year coach Jeff Levy, who is at Oklahoma, and I think eventually when he gets his players, he'll be okay. But they were abysmal last week in the game against Toledo. They lost 41-17. They are allowing nearly 30 points a game, which is really poor. Ranked 90th in the country with that. They've allowed 213 yards a game, which would tell me that Florida would have some success in running against them. State's got pretty good running backs. Johnny Daniels, Devon Booth, and Keon Lee, they all rotate. And their quarterback, I think, eventually will be pretty good. Blake Shapen, 834 yards, 7 touchdowns, only 1 turnover. They've got a good wide receiver. And Kevin Coleman, 7 catches, 77 yards last week. Now, look, this is not a great team, any stretch of imagination, but I think they'll be much better in November than they are right now.
Yeah, Van Der wants to know, QB, we are talking him up every day, why aren't you? Because Van Der, anything we say on this program has nothing to do with what's going to happen with the hiring of a football coach. I would love for Kerwin to be the coach. I'm just being realistic, and if it happens, I can promise you I will be one of the happiest dudes around. All right, so they have odds out for the next coach for the Florida Gators. I don't know who did this, but some of these are just stupid.
Look,
I mean, if anyone thinks, okay, so Jamie Chadwell supposedly is the favorite, plus 400, Lane's at plus 500, Dion at plus 600. I really believe Brent Beaird has a better chance at coaching the Gators than Dion.
Yeah, or Brent Key maybe. No, I agree with you. Look, this is from something called Bet Online. And a lot of this is just throwing stuff on the wall and see what sticks. It really means nothing. It just gives people a chance to look at some things. Now, I will say from this list, Glenn Schumann's not, I don't think, going to Florida, but Glenn Schumann's a really good coach at Georgia on the defensive side of the ball, and I think he will get a job sooner than later, frankly. And a lot of these guys just are not going to move. They're happy where they are. So we'll see all kinds of little lists like this over the next few weeks, and most of them are not accurate at all.
Georgia's off this week, and as you said, this is probably not a fun week in Athens going out to practice the way they
No,
played. They struggled a lot on offense. I watched that game, boy, they were terrible, terrible on
yeah,
offense.
yeah, they were. I agree with that. 13 points, only 262 yards of offense. Carson Beck threw for 160. Now, a lot of that was, I give Kentucky a lot of credit for that. Kentucky played really extremely well. And Shane, you might can explain this to us. For whatever reason, Georgia really struggles in Lexington. If you go back over the years and look at their record in Lexington, I mean, they win, but they barely win. And Kentucky just plays lights out. So whatever the psychology with that is kind of interesting. I'll let you comment on that in just a second. But the big thing for Georgia was losing Tate Ratledge, one of their better offensive linemen. He's not out for the year, but he's in a knee brace and a walking boot. He's got a sprained MCL and sprained ankle, so that will be a little bit before he comes back, we think. So that's the biggest thing for Georgia. But isn't that interesting, though? Kentucky plays terribly against South Carolina the week before, and then they play maybe their best game of the year against Georgia.
Yeah. Kentucky is coming off that heartbreaker, and they're playing Ohio. Look out, the Bobcats are those kind of teams that
You're right.
lull you to sleep, and I could see the Bobcats winning this game, believe it or not.
Well, Kentucky has had 2 straight games where they did not score a touchdown. Brock Vandergriff is. I was pretty impressed with him. He's not a great quarterback. He's not real polished yet. He didn't get to play at Georgia much, but he's tough. He's. I give him credit for that, and he was a leader for that team. So we'll see how he grows up over the next little bit. But that's a good point, Shane. And hopefully Kentucky, and I think they will win enough this year where they can get back to a bowl game. And there's a lot of rumors about maybe Mark Stoops and Kentucky kind of being able to part ways at the end of the year. Not saying that's going to happen, but it's just something to keep your eye on.
Here's a pretty good text, Brent. I'm going to get your thoughts on this. This is from Dave in Macon, Georgia. Which of the following are most important in a head coach's skill set? Recruiting, staff building, player development. Here's what I will say.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a head coach, having the skill, and I'm an offensive guy, so I'm just going to talk from an offensive standpoint, is the ability to scheme and play call and utilize your players. If you do that, that means you're going to be successful on offense. And by doing that, the recruiting takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Player development has always been an interesting term to me because I've been around the game a long time. I've seen tremendous talented athletes that are what they are. Doesn't matter who's coaching them or whatever. They've reached their peak. So some great athletes can come in and I don't care if they got freaking Nick Saban, Newt Rockne coaching them. They are what they are. They may never turn into a great player. So I go back to play calling and scheming is the most important thing to me in a head coach's skill set.
Yeah.
Brent, you got any comments on that?
Yeah. I mean, I basically agree with that. I will say this, and I remember when Bobby Bowden was in the last few years at Florida State, one of the things that really caused them problems was that they were able to recruit, but the word that you got from people who understood what was going on with the staff, they were struggling to develop some of the players. So to what Shane's saying, I think that has some real merit, frankly. And look, I've told several people this. I said, don't worry about recruiting. Yes, we cover it, and we cover it closely. But I've always heard this mantra years ago, and I agree with it. If you get the right guy, all the rest of it trickles down.
Care of itself.
It takes care of itself. That's the number one thing. Because look, and if you miss a little bit in a recruiting class in a few months, if this happens as we think it will with Napier, if you get the right guy, it's not going to matter because they're going to make up for it somehow, some way over the course of the next few months.
Yeah. If anyone thinks Coach Spurrier was a relentless recruiter, they're crazy. His style of play and success on the field, kids wanted to come play for him. For great example, he didn't even recruit Rex Grossman. Rex Grossman came through town on a family vacation and dropped his tape off on his desk and said, "Will you please look at this?" So there are certain coaches that know how to call games that kids want to play
Yes.
for.
That's right.
Text here from Robert in Fort Myers says, question for you and Brent. If a player receives money like Lagway did, well, all of them are getting money. Then he transfers because the head coach was fired or resigned. Does he keep all the money? I know they get like signing bonuses now, so you probably don't get that back. But I think the contracts are maybe like a 6 months here, 6 months there. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if anybody's ever going to tell us the answer to that. Brent, do you have any answer?
I think you summed it up real well. a lot of that we'll never know. Maybe we don't need to know that. But I think the other reality is if you're not enrolled in school, I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But no, I think you were you were very close to the answer.
Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it. We stand by it. We got Brent Beaird here, college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, on the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Sound. So the Kerwin talk is all over this thing today. Michael wants to know, would Kerwin bring Cade? Yes, Cade would come with him. And I've already got a job lined up for myself. I told Kerwin, I don't want to coach. I'm going to be an analyst. I'll help you out whenever you need it. But I still need my 2 to 3 days to go play golf.
I think he'd agree to that, wouldn't he, Shane?
He did. He said it's a done deal. So there you go. LSU hosts the Big Ten Bruins of UCLA. Has UCLA ever played at Tiger Stadium?
I'd have to go back and see. I know they played before. And I think they played recently, but it's that'd be a good question. And listen, UCLA is really struggling at this point. I mean, they barely got anybody at their games. They're just going to have to kind of redo that program. Their quarterback Ethan Garbers is about a 50% passer, and this LSU team is an interesting team. I mean, think about this: they lost to Southern Cal in a game they really should have won. They won last week at South Carolina in a game they should have lost. So Shane, they could easily be 1-2 right now, frankly, or they also could be undefeated. So nice win for them last week. They rallied from being down 17-0. And were able to come back and win the game. And we'll talk about them in a few minutes. South Carolina also has played well. I've been very impressed with what Shane Beamer's been able to do, particularly defensively with this team.
Yeah. Mark says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, Mullen was a great play caller. That wasn't the program. He was a good play caller, but he wasn't an elite, great play caller. And his relationship, I mean, it goes to show, look, what I'm trying to say is if you are a great play caller and you have control of your program, you play a fun style of football, players will come to you. Players didn't come to him. Okay. Players came to Steve Spurrier. Players go to Ole Miss because of Lane Kiffin. They ain't going there because of the Grove. They're going there because of Lane Kiffin. All right. Missouri hosts the Commodores, who let one slip away last week. They could have been 3-0. Missouri seems like Missouri plays every game at home against not a very great competitive team. However, BC played them pretty tough.
Yeah, They really did. But by the way, I looked up real quick. UCLA, LSU did play at UCLA in 2021 when Ed Orgeron was there. But as far as Baton Rouge, I'm still looking at that one. Okay, Missouri. One thing that's really helped Missouri is, and Ole Miss for that matter, is their September schedule is pretty easy, so they will get off to a good start. Missouri's got a resurgent Vanderbilt team. By the way, Missouri's kicker may have won that game last week with Boston College. He kicked 4 field goals. One was a 56-yarder. It's amazing how good these kickers are in the college and NFL ranks now. Brady Cook is continuing to play well, 70% completion percentage. Nate Knoll and Marcus Carroll running the ball well for them. Really disappointing loss for Vanderbilt last week at Georgia State. Shane, do you know that Georgia State rushed the field after the game? With that, unfortunately, Vanderbilt's defense let them down toward the end of the game. I still love Diego Pavia. He was really a fun and he's really tough quarterback. So hopefully Vanderbilt, that'd be a thrill for them to be able to get to a bowl game this year.
Yeah, for sure. 31 Ember wants me to describe Kerwin's offensive scheme. It is Steve Spurrier, Lindy Infante, West Coast, and a little bit of what Lane and Josh Heupel do all into one. They go fast. They throw the ball vertical. The last few years, they are the only team in FCS that averaged over 300 yards passing, over 200 yards rushing. Last year, there were 3 teams in America that did that for the entire year. It was Oregon, LSU, and Western Carolina. He's always put up numbers everywhere he's been. The Mighty Rebs got the Eagles from Georgia Southern rolling in. Clay Helton, who I think Lane hired. Actually, Clay Helton is responsible for recruiting Jackson Dart to USC, who then transferred to Ole Miss. Just another game for Ole Miss to beat up on the little guys, right?
Well, it will be. Henry Parrish is really playing well. Give him a lot of credit. And look, the thing that Lane does that people sometimes don't understand, Lane really leans on the running game. And that is part of the reason they're so successful throwing the ball. And again, I mean, their numbers are off the chart. Frankly, this is amazing. Ole Miss right now is averaging nearly 700 yards a game. I mean, that's amazing when you think about that. And look, we have to keep in mind the competition that they're playing early right now. And Georgia Southern's at this point, I mean, they're struggling, even though they are 2-1 right now. So you're right. It would be an easy win for Ole Miss, but there's some big games for the Rebels coming up starting next month.
Yeah, another text here saying that this gentleman said he heard something interesting last night. If Billy were fired before the UCF game, any player on our team could transfer and redshirt this year. Ask Brent if that is true. Redshirt is true. The transfer. I mean, you can transfer whenever you want, but it's the whole 4 games or whatever. If you play less than 4 games, you can redshirt. Something along those lines. Yeah,
it's 4 games. Well, it's 4 games, yes, and which is one of the better things the NCAA did, and they've got a rule that's coming out. If it passes, that 4 games may be actually increased to 5. But again, as folks have figured out, what you can do in season is certainly limited compared to what you do out season.
Frank wants to know, why hasn't Kerwin been offered a major college job? Don't know the answer to that. I do know Kerwin represented himself. I don't even know if he has an agent, so that could be an issue. All right. Moving on to the game of the week. The Sooners host the Vols. This could be a heck of a ball game.
It really could. And this is one of the better defenses in the nation against one of the better offenses and defenses in the nation. We can say that now about Tennessee. I mean, game day will be there. They'll concentrate a lot on Josh Heupel coming home, and Heupel would downplay it, but that was not. Heupel was fired from Oklahoma, and understand that was not real pleasant, obviously. So, but hopefully they have kind of mended their relationship. This is an amazing stat here, Shane. For the Sooners are a touchdown underdog for the first at home for the first time since November 21st, 1998, versus Texas Tech. So, but their defense is really incredible. It's what they thought it would be. The problem is they are struggling offensively. Jackson Arnold is good and bad, but some of that's because of the offensive line. We talked early they'd have to replace the entire offensive line. Arnold has already been sacked 9 times. So, I mean, that's 3 a game. You certainly don't want that if you're a quarterback. But, I mean, Tennessee is really playing well. Dylan Sampson is running over 100 yards. Nico's numbers are good, 71%. And their defense is really good. The big thing for Tennessee, and this came out yesterday, was in their ticket prices starting next year. Tennessee is going to add a 10% talent fee. And they're being transparent about it. I think what is interesting about this. Talent fee means we need some more money to get players in the NIL. So we're just going to let you know what's going to happen here, and so that'll help some people, and some people it won't.
A&M coming off their first win in 10 road games, go back home, and they're hosting Bowling Green.
Yes.
Bowling Green gave Penn State all they wanted. This is a scary game for the Aggies. They got Connor Bazelak, who used to play at Missouri, the quarterback of Bowling Green.
Yes. Well, and they have this pretty good team, frankly, as Shane said. Harold Fanning is among the top tight ends in the nation for Bowling Green. Bazelak, listen, Bazelak has been around so long. He has 922 career completions, and it's number 3 among active players, behind Washington's Will Rogers, who came from Mississippi State, and Oregon's Dylan Gabriel.
Wow.
So he's been around for a while. He knows what he's doing. Malcolm Johnson's a good Bowling Green wide receiver too. So Mike Elko actually was at Bowling Green as their D coordinator under Dave Clawson for about 4 years. So there are all kinds of ties together here. So I will be interested to see how Marcel Reed develops. Shane, were you? What did you think of Reed? Do you think he has a future with A&M?
Well, I think they're going to go with him. Not a great thrower. Will he get better? Maybe. But boy, he's quick. He can run the football. He's got good instincts, and I thought he handled himself really, really well in the swamp. Before we get out of here, Brent Beaird says, QB, do you think it'll feel weird for Josh Heupel coaching against his alma mater in Norman? Yeah, it's going to be strange. It's no different than when Coach Spurrier came back here with South Carolina. It happens a lot in college football. Zach from Jack says, is there anyone on this staff that you'd want to be the interim if they move on from Bill? I don't think there is anybody you can make the interim, quite honestly. That's just my opinion. Brent, give us a couple of nuggets out of the ACC. Somebody had a question for you earlier, asking if Mike Norvell will bench DJ and play the other kid. I know they're paying him so much money that they don't want to put him on the bench, but do you think they eventually make that move?
They may have to, frankly. just to win some games. I know that sounds silly, but it's true. Frankly, now they've got Brock Glenn is behind him, and look what they could do. See what they could do in starting DJU and letting Brock Glenn in, and just to get a little bit of experience. By the way, they play Cal, who beat Auburn, and Cal is 3-0 for the first time in 5 years. FSU is 0-3 for just the second time since 1976, the year I graduated high school. So FSU is not running the ball well. Well, frankly, they're not doing anything well, obviously. Now, Alex Atkins, the offensive coordinator, is back. He had a 3-game suspension imposed by the NCAA. So they're hoping that will help them somewhat. A couple of games to keep your eye on, since we've been talking about Jeff Brom. Georgia Tech's at Louisville, which is a nice game. And I tell you, a non-conference game to keep your eye on. South Florida and Miami play this weekend. And look, Miami will win. South Florida's not bad. South Florida gave Alabama all kinds of trouble. So they've got a good little quarterback. Naquan Wright, remember, from Florida is their running back at South Florida. So that will be interesting to see. So yeah, some interesting games, Shane, in the ACC.
Yeah. Before we get you out of here, J&J Trucking asked on YouTube, brought to you by Quad Plum. Keep hearing Wilson is trying not to play for this coaching staff. Just curious how true that is. I know he didn't play last week and looks like he isn't playing. He's out this week. I do know he was injured in practice last week.
Right.
The extent of the injury, I don't know. I know that he tried to warm up. Now they have the reports. They do another report on the injury report right before kickoff. In the NFL, when you're watching NFL Live or whatever that show is on Sundays,
right,
waiting for your fantasy players or whatever, they'll have the players that are questionable or doubtful go out and with the trainer and do a bunch of drills, and then they'll say, okay, he's in or he's out. I know they did that with Trey Wilson last week, but he's definitely out this week. Brent, good stuff as always, my man. We appreciate your time. Real quick, who you got at the top of your Heisman list right now? Do you have Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning?
Well, that's funny. That's a really good point. I think at this point you've got both those guys. Jalen Milroe is up there. Also, Carson Beck, I think, is going to be in it before it's over. And look, the way Ole Miss is playing, I think Jackson Dart's got to get a look. So it's all a lot of speculation right now. And I try to get someone besides quarterbacks from time to time, but there's some good ones, and there's some good ones in the SEC.
Yeah, if I was voting right now, and I know they haven't really played anybody, but Jackson Dart's been the best player, in my opinion.
I understand, yes.
Yeah. Brent, good stuff. Appreciate your time, my friend.
Always, brother. Take care.
Yep. That's Brent Beaird, college football analyst, Heisman Trophy voter, joining us on the Titan More Hotline. Take a quick time out, come back. I'm going to try to get to some of the comments, questions, and all these dang texts. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, Titan MRI, Meldon Law, Peachland Dental, QC Kinetics, Campus USA Credit Union, Dave & Buster's. Gridiron sponsors, Comfort Temp, UF Bookstores, Quality Plumbing, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogra State Farm, Electronics World, F45. Our touchdown sponsors, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Aikido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Miapa Latin Cafe, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, MG&A Wealth, Nest and Wild.
If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapa Latin Cafe with 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua. You're never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. All right, so C. Irby says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Shane, I'm a Merritt Island guy. If Kerwin got the job, how do you feel about Jerry Odom as DC? He would definitely have Jerry on his staff. Jerry's a very good football coach. He's coached a long time. Good recruiter as well. Text on the Tightening Mark text line. This is from somewhere in a basement in rural Central Florida. Who's to say if Lane Kiffin comes to UF that he doesn't bring John Gruden in as a GM type or analyst of some sort? That's always a possibility. He'll have a ton of analysts, not as many as we have now. He has a bunch at Ole Miss. Gruden and Monty coached together, though, 2 Super Bowl. Gruden has his training academy in Tampa that he runs, and CBS Sports just reported yesterday that he's interested in coming back to coach college level. Yeah. I would, as people know, majority of the time when you hire a new coach, they're going to bring the people they're comfortable with. Lane has a good rapport with the coaches on his staff right now, just as Billy did when he came from Louisiana. So I know that some staffs are ranked or graded by different publications out there, and supposedly Lane's got a really good staff. So, and I mean, I do not think John Gruden will be the coach of the University of Florida. I don't think that's possible. Okay, let's see. There was Barone says he'd retain Mike Peterson, Jaluk, and the new special teams coach. After that, the entire staff can go. Yeah, but remember, it's all about who the new coach has a relationship with or believes that they have the same philosophy. That's all coaching is, man. It's about who people you can trust, things of that nature. All right, so let's get to a couple of these Facebook Lives that I wanted to get to, and I got to pull that up on my phone, unfortunately, because it goes away on the computer for some reason. All right, waiting for it to pop up here. Here we go. Andy says, Gruden never developed a QB despite his QB school. Yeah, you may be right there. RW says on a Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law, Lane Kiffin will bring Charlie Weiss Jr. Probably so, unless maybe Ole Miss makes him their head coach. You don't know. Maybe Coach Ed Ogeron. That's a possibility as well. All right, Brandon says here, QB on Buddy's show last night, they said at practice when former players would watch, they would see bad techniques and vocalize it to players, and a staffer would come over and say they will correct it in the film. Crazy. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I don't know who they told, because coaches are usually coaching and you don't get close enough to say any of that stuff. So I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it is. I just stand in the corner of the few practices I go to. I don't think we throw routes on air and spot throw enough. And that's how you become a really good throwing team, in my opinion. But everybody does it their own way. All right, this is from RW. He says, Chris West cursed after Billy Napier screwed over that St. Augustine Nice High School QB Joker for allegedly racist rap singing. That kid got railroaded big time, and his dad and family too. No college would touch him for singing a rap song. Shameless UF president did this to that kid. I remember that. I don't remember the whole thing though. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Andy says, Shane, this is Facebook Live brought to you by Mellow Law. Did you see on Sunday where the Packers center vomited on the ball just prior to snapping it as a QB? What would you do in that situation? That never happened to me, thank goodness. I've seen plenty of vomit on the field. I mean, he still had to catch the snap, right? He was in the shotgun. I do remember seeing that. Rodney on Facebook Live says, I might add, Strickland knew Billy's offense was basic. Kerwin's offense is very sophisticated and hard to defend. I wouldn't say it's sophisticated. It's just it's got a lot of imagination, a lot of creativity. Again, this is what Coach Spurrier says a lot, and I agree with it. The older I get, and I've never been interviewed for a coaching job, so I wouldn't know. But when coaches go for interviews, I think some people are great interviews and some people are terrible interviews. And usually the great interviewers are the ones that are really organized, that have these 3-ring binders this thick. They can tell you what they're going to be doing week 12 of this month at 5:45, what their team's going to be doing. Then you have guys, which Coach Spurrier, he'll even tell you he's a terrible interview, but the dude can coach football. I just think that's more important than being organized and all that stuff. Maybe because that's how I am personally. Again, all I care about is from an offensive standpoint, is the guy creative? Do we have explosive plays? Will we take shots? Will we mix up personnel? Will we mix up formations? That makes offense so much easier because you dictate to the defense what you're going to do. Michael says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, do you and Sean Kelly have a pregame tradition? No. So in our booth, it's not just me and Sean. It's me, Sean, our spotter, Steve Egan, the producer, and Jeff Cardozo with Tate on the sideline. But no, there's no pregame tradition or anything. Nope. James says, why are people saying Dion? What is he? Dion, like I told you, I firmly believe this with all my heart, that I would have a better chance of getting this job with no college coaching experience over Dion. I don't know. Nothing against Dion, tremendous player, but I have not seen anything that he's done anywhere he's been that's made him a good football coach. And I really don't think he will be there next year because his kids aren't going to be there. I think it's kind of like a daddy ball thing going on. People say. So anyway, appreciate everybody joining in today. Don't forget Electronics World, integration and design specialist for smart home automation and entertainment, affordable local installation service and support. electronicsworld.net. Tomorrow we'll have JC. We'll do our Peachland Dental weekend picks. A lot of games to pick. Should be a lot of fun. Have another guest waiting on some text back. Before we get out of here, just because this one came through, even though there's about, I can't even count them all that I have not read. This is the one. Please, so tired of seeing Georgia Bulldogs sign with Brent on your show. Please help. Look, Brent is a Alabama grad. Brent speaks at all the different clubs around Florida and Georgia. So that's not going to change. He's an analyst. He's a Heisman Trophy voter. This is not a Florida Gator strictly show. This is from Dino. JC keeps talking about former Gators as head coach. Who besides Kerwin is out there? Nobody.